beware avoiders.
Yes.
And this is very, very important. The avoider won't lie to your face. They will just do everything in their power to avoid having a conversation that is awkward for them to have because it will reveal an answer you don't want, that you don't want.
Why are they avoiding? Like, what's the point?
Because they want to keep having their cake. They want to.
Why are guys so mean, Matthew?
Yeah, women do this too.
I know, but like,
everyone does this. Who hasn't thought? Yeah. I think probably this person likes me a bit more than I like them.
Right.
And I'm not going to tell them that because it kind of feels nice right now. There's people. Damn. How many women have a guy friend?
Right.
Who they know that guy's in love with them. But they want a friend to go out with this Friday. Wow. And they know that every time they go out with that guy, there's a little bit of hope in his mind. And they're not killing that hope. They're not saying, just so you know, John, this is never happening.
Ever.
We are never sleeping together. We are never having a relationship. That's not something I want with you. I see you 100% as a friend. How many people truly say that?
Right.
Very few.
Right.
Because there's something about the dynamic that is working for her right now. Mm-hmm. Many guys know they're not going to offer a relationship at the end of sleeping with someone, but they don't have that conversation before sleeping with someone.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Or ever, if they don't have to.
Or ever, if they don't have to.
How did you know she was the one?
She accepted me on a level I'd never felt accepted before.
Wow.
And I felt... I think I was more afraid to be vulnerable than I realized in my 20s. If you'd have asked me at 25, are you a vulnerable person? I would have been like, yeah. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have thought I wasn't. But when I look back now, my version of vulnerability was, telling a heroic story about myself, about how it used to be hard and now it's great.
Right.
Which is not like, that's the kind of like Joseph Campbell hero's journey vulnerability that is like, here's how my life sucked and here's how like amazing my life is now. And it's not really it's really a story about how great you are.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not, vulnerable stories they're not the stories that are enjoyable to tell because we come out the hero.
Right.
Real vulnerability is the stuff that's actually hard to say because you're worried you're not going to love me if I tell you this. It took me a minute to realize I didn't talk about those parts of myself. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't really accepted them in myself. So it was hard for me to ever think that someone else was going to accept them. But then when I started talking to my now wife, Audrey, about certain things that I was afraid to say in other relationships, when I sort of covered my eyes and ears thinking, okay, this is the part where you'd now change your opinion of me, or this is the part where you don't love me anymore. She was like, oh, I love you even more now.
How long do you think someone should be dating another person before they bring up the question of what are we? I feel like that's something I went through in my younger years, but I feel like I made mistakes. I feel like I stayed around longer than I should have. Mm-hmm. I wasted time. So what's like a good gauge for someone to just, either exit or continue being in this cycle of uncertainty at that point?
It's a great question, Nessa. There's no one answer to that, right?
Yeah.
But it's probably longer than one date that you need to give it before you have that conversation.
Fair.
And it's probably shorter than 6 months. If you 6 months into seeing someone, or in some cases even 3 months into seeing someone, depending on how much time you're giving them, can't tell me what the thing is,
right?
Or even if it's a thing, why is it you don't know? And the answer is always the same. I don't know because I haven't really asked, and I haven't really asked because I am afraid that when I have the conversation, that's going to be the last day in this situation I have with someone.
Wow.
So we're afraid to ask questions that lead to answers we don't want or that could spell the end of this thing we're enjoying.
Right.
But once again, we are hurting ourselves because our time is the thing we are never getting back. And not to mention, the longer we go forward in a dynamic without saying what we want, the more we tacitly approve the dynamic that's being given to us.
Right.
If you haven't mentioned that you want a relationship and that you don't want to proceed if this person's not in the same place as you,
right.
If you don't mention that, you're approving the current situation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What we think is that if I just keep getting closer to this person, then eventually they're going to wake up and realize how great I am, and then they're going to turn around and commit to me. The opposite happens. The closer we get and the more we do for someone, and the more we never mention what we really want while we're doing all those things for someone, the more someone cements the existing dynamic in their mind that what this is a situation where they get everything they want.
Wow.
And they don't have to give anything in return. They certainly don't have to give you any kind of security in the relationship. Maybe in their mind, they don't even have to stop sleeping with other people. Woo. And I didn't know you had a problem with that. You never asked.
Right. Today, it is all about love. This episode, if you're trying to find the one, then you're going to want to pay close attention, because now we are joined by dating coach, a guru when it comes to love, a New York Times best-selling author who also has a #1 YouTube channel for love advice. Matthew Hussey, you are here with us, and we're going to talk about your new book called Love Life: How to Raise Your Standards, Find Your Person, and Live Happily Ever After No Matter What? Okay, so Matthew, welcome, and let's jump right in. How did you become a dating coach?
I don't even see myself as a dating coach. I help people with confidence. I help people with relational intelligence. Dating to me is something that most people don't even want to do. I mean, they don't. Everyone wants to find love. Not everyone wants to date. And most people who want to find love don't want to have to go through dating to find love. So for me, I prefer these days. I wrote this book. This book's called Love Life because it's about finding love as opposed to a book about dating.
Right.
And when I started out, I was someone who myself was working on being more confident. I was working on being a little braver. I was a very shy and introverted kid. I'm still introverted. I'm just a little less shy these days. But I needed the help. You know, I needed to learn how to make an impact. I needed to learn how to step out of my own anxious thinking, how to put myself out there. And I did. You know, I read a lot of things that really helped me. And so I started making YouTube videos. I'm 36 now. I started making YouTube videos at 19. And that was like early YouTube.
Right.
And I never knew anyone would watch them. I was just talking about things that helped me and seeing if they would help anyone else. But now 500 million views later.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'm glad you realized like how incredible your YouTube page is. I mean, and I love it because a lot of times people don't know where to go. They just want to get some insight. It's like having a friend there for you. And, you know, I think it makes dating or just confidence in yourself a little bit easier. Because back in the day, like our parents didn't have that, right? They just had to listen to what the elders had to say, like whatever wisdom they passed down. But now having this access to somebody who's not scared to put themselves out there, because you have put yourself out there and just, you know, you've shared what you went through when you were, you know, trying to be a better person when it comes to love. So you got married last year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's been the hardest part about marriage?
We're very early in our marriage.
So is it the honeymoon stage?
So I feel, well, I don't know. My wife probably wouldn't argue it's the honeymoon stage. She's like, you're launching a book. This is not the year one that I had expected or wanted, is you running around doing 1,000 interviews, you know, but it's fun. It's fun to, I'm not someone who ever thought like I'm definitely getting married.
Really?
No, I didn't. I had kind of had to like ask people I respected and trusted what was the point. Like why bother? Because it didn't. There's a little bit of a streak in me that was like, I don't need a piece of paper to tell me what my relationship is, and I don't. You know, why would I want to bring an institution into this?
Right.
Like it's between me and this person I love. So it just didn't, none of the tradition of it really spoke to me. I needed like my own reason to do it. And I remember speaking to friends of mine and saying, you know, why did you get married? Like, what was the point? And I wasn't being flippant.
Right.
Like I really wanted to know, like, why not just stay a couple? And a couple of people I love and trusted gave me some really good arguments. And they, you know, I think one of them said for him, there was something different. It felt different when he got married. And he said we live in a culture where it's so easy to just exit things all the time.
For sure.
And there's something about this silly piece of paper
right.
that says I do give it a thought when I have an argument with my partner.
Right.
And I feel like storming out the door. Yeah. And I feel like ending the whole thing. We need that thing that means I do give it a second thought.
Right. Well, how did you know she was the one, your wife? Was there a moment in the relationship you're like, yep, this is... Many. She accepted me on a level I'd never felt accepted before. Wow.
And I felt... I think I was more afraid to be vulnerable than I realized in my 20s, you know, which followed me into my 30s. But if you'd have asked me at 25, are you a vulnerable person? I would have been like, yeah. I wouldn't have thought I wasn't. But when I look back now, my version of vulnerability was, you know, telling a heroic story about myself, about how it used to be hard and now it's great. Right. Which is not like... that's the kind of like Joseph Campbell hero's journey vulnerability that is like, you know, here's how my life sucked and here's how like amazing my life is now. And it's really a story about how great you are.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not, vulnerable stories they're not the stories that are enjoyable to tell because we come out the hero.
Right.
Real vulnerability is the stuff that's actually hard to say because you're worried you're not going to love me if I tell you this. This feels shameful.
Yeah.
This feels like a part of me that is contemptible or weak and fragile. And it took me a minute to realize, well, that I didn't, nearly as much as I thought, I didn't talk about those parts of myself. And I hadn't really accepted them in myself. So it was hard for me to ever think that someone else was going to accept them. But then when I started talking to my now wife, Audrey, about certain things that I was afraid to say in other relationships, you know, when I sort of covered my eyes and ears thinking, okay, this is the part where you'd now change your opinion of me, or this is the part where you don't love me anymore, or you think I'm not cool, or I'm not sexy, I'm not this like heroic guy. She was like, oh, I love you even more now. And that was like, okay. And then we also went through some hard times together. Like we had some hard things go on in both of our lives. And it was in the hard times that we went through some hard things that in dating, you shouldn't, like it should have been easier, but we both were going through hard times in our lives. And in those times we really, really bonded. And I realized, oh, this is the person that the rest of my life, if we did this well in these hard times, then this is going to be an amazing person to go through life with. So
that is amazing. I feel like you do have to go through those hard times. At least for me, like I remember when Colin, now my husband, we went through hard times, and that really shows you who you're with. And I feel like everyone needs to go through hard times before they decide to get married, because listen, either it's going to make it or break it.
The danger is, of course, that we evaluate how important something is before we ever get to any of those hard times.
Yes.
And then we rush into things with people, and we've only ever seen them when things are great. And we've only ever seen them when we're our best version of ourselves, or, you know, when we're the heroic version. And I sometimes think that's a shame. And it also, I mean, that doesn't just happen with someone we're dating for a year. It happens with someone we've been on one date with, where you get obsessed with that person because you had such a great date.
Right.
And, you know, it feels like you have this incredible connection.
Yeah.
And then you think, well, this is it. You know, this is how it's supposed to feel. This feels amazing. But you can forget that you haven't actually been through anything with that person. You truly, no matter how great the date was, you have no idea who they are. None.
At all.
All you know is the impact they've had on you.
Right.
But someone's impact isn't their character.
Ooh.
Character is consistent, and it can only be measured over time.
Let's go. That's right. That right there is so important. So in your experience, what would you say is the number one mistake people make early on when they start dating somebody? And now that you've had experience and, you know, you do this work, And now your friend is coming to you and is like, okay, Matthew, what should I do? How should I prepare? I'm going to start dating this girl. What should I avoid?
Well, I think what we have to start doing is getting intentional about the kinds, firstly, what it is we want before we go in. And I'm not talking about like some ideal partner checklist. I think that stuff tends to be nonsense.
Right.
But like just firstly, am I looking for a relationship? Like that's a very basic thing, but am I looking for a relationship? Now, by the way, there's no shame if you don't know. If you're at a stage in your life where you're like, I don't even know if I want a relationship. I'm just happy floating along, doing whatever. I just see some people. Fine. But if you're at a stage of your life where you're like, no, I want to build something with someone, then you need to be really honest with yourself about that before you even go in. Because if you're not, you are liable to waste time with any person that comes through the door that you find yourself attracted to, who has completely different intentions to you, but you're overlooking the mismatch in intentions because they're super sexy. Yeah. They're very charismatic. They're very charming. You love being around them. That can make you ignore the path you actually want to be on. And then anyone can manipulate you away from that path. So you have to know, what is it I want? And again, that extends to people who want a family, people who want kids. It's like if you are at an age where you're like, you know what? The next relationship I am in needs to be a very intentional one because I don't have all the time in the world to make this happen. I have this thing called biology and it's going to, at a certain point, my window is going to pass for me to have my own child. That's not for me to say if anyone wants that, but if you know you want that. And you find yourself at 38 years old dating a 23-year-old because you went to a party last night and you met this really cute, fun person and it feels very flattering and you're like having a great time and you're like, well, it feels good and it's something for now. There's no one else. You quickly become the co-conspirator in the theft of your own dreams because you want a family. But now you're wasting time with this person who's not going to be where you are for a long time, probably doesn't even know if they want a relationship, let alone kids.
Are you
So this is how we betray ourselves. It's not, someone else doesn't betray us in these situations. We betray ourselves because we haven't said to ourselves, what do I really want? And then, so the first thing is being honest with yourself about your path. And the second thing is, be honest with yourself about the qualities and the values that really matter to you. I'm not talking about how tall someone is or how they style themselves or how they, whatever. None of that superficial stuff. What are the qualities like kindness, consistency, integrity, honesty? What are the things that matter to you that are going to make for a great relationship? And then the people you let into your life have to show those values. And no matter how attracted to someone you are, if they're not showing you those values, realize that it's not worth spending another second in that person's company because they're ultimately going to be incapable of making you happy, even if you do get them.
How long do you think someone should be, dating another person before they bring up the question of what are we? I feel like that's something I went through in my younger years, but I feel like I made mistakes. I feel like I stayed around longer than I should have. I wasted time. So what's like a good gauge for someone to just, either exit or continue being in this cycle of uncertainty at that point?
It's a great question, Nessa. I think if you're going to give like a universal answer, because there's no one answer to that, right? But it's probably longer than one date that you need to give it before you have that conversation.
Fair.
And it's probably shorter than 6 months, right?
Really?
Like it's if you 6 months into seeing someone, or in some cases even 3 months into seeing someone, depending on how much time you're giving them, can't tell me what the thing is, or even if it's a thing. Like, are you and this person giving it a try? Are you in a relationship? If you can't tell me that, then my next question is why? Why is it you don't know? And the answer is always the same. I don't know because I haven't really asked. And I haven't really asked because I am afraid that when I have the conversation, that's going to be the last day in this situation I have with someone.
Wow.
So we're afraid to ask questions that lead to answers we don't want or that could spell the end of this thing we're enjoying.
Right.
But once again, we are hurting ourselves because our time is the thing we are never getting back.
Right.
So, and not to mention, the longer we go forward in a dynamic without saying what we want, the more we tacitly approve the dynamic that's being given to us.
Right.
If you haven't mentioned that you want a relationship and that you don't want to proceed if this person's not in the same place as you,
right.
If you don't mention that, you're approving the current situation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What we think is that if I just keep getting closer to this person, then eventually they're going to wake up and realize how great I am, and then they're going to turn around and commit to me. The opposite happens. The closer we get and the more we do for someone and the more we never mention what we really want while we're doing all those things for someone, the more someone cements the existing dynamic in their mind that what this is a situation where they get everything they want.
Wow.
And they don't have to give anything in return. They certainly don't have to give you any kind of security in the relationship. Maybe in their mind, they don't even have to stop sleeping with other people. Woo. And I didn't know you had a problem with that. You never asked.
Right.
You know, there's a chapter in the book called Beware Avoiders.
Yes.
And this is very, very important because in the beginning of the chapter, I say, look, we all know that there are pathological liars out there, but there's a certain person that is much more common than a pathological liar, and it's the avoider. The avoider won't lie to your face. They will just do everything in their power to avoid having a conversation that is awkward for them to have because it will reveal an answer you don't want, that you don't want.
Why are they avoiding? Like, what's the point?
Because they want to keep having their cake. They want to.
Why are guys so mean, Matthew?
Yeah, women do this too.
I know, but like,
everyone does this. Who hasn't thought? Yeah. I think probably this person likes me a bit more than I like them.
Right.
And I'm not going to tell them that because it kind of feels nice right now. There's people. Damn. How many women have a guy friend?
Right.
Who they know that guy's in love with them. But they want a friend to go out with this Friday. Wow. And they know that every time they go out with that guy, there's a little bit of hope in his mind. And they're not killing that hope. They're not saying, just so you know, John, this is never happening.
Ever.
We are never sleeping together. We are never having a relationship. That's not something I want with you. I see you 100% as a friend. How many people truly say that?
Right.
Very few.
Right.
Because there's something about the dynamic that is working for her right now. Mm-hmm. Many guys know they're not going to offer a relationship at the end of sleeping with someone, but they don't have that conversation before sleeping with someone.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Or ever if they don't have to.
If they don't have to. And so what we have to start realizing is avoiders, there's an avoider in all of us, but there are avoiders everywhere in dating. And the only way an avoider can thrive in your life is if you are an avoider too.
Whoa.
If you avoid the conversation, they get to avoid the conversation. And that's what keeps you in the dynamic. There can't be a situation with only one avoider. In order for an avoider to thrive, you need two of them.
Ooh, okay. So in your book, I want to talk about chapter 9, Never Satisfied. Right? What is this about? Why is this important to understand, in a relationship? Because I can see how this plays a bigger part than people think. Like when you're just never satisfied within yourself, nothing's going to be good enough for you. But I want your take, and why was that chapter important for you to talk about?
Well, I think firstly, because if we're not careful, we oscillate between two different types of situations in our love life. One, where we get really excited about someone who's not available and ends up breaking our heart.
Right. Aww.
And the other, where we get someone who feels really safe, who we feel no spark with, And we spend our lives questioning if they're the one for us and if we should be going for someone who excites us more. And we do this figure of 8 between these two different situations, always wondering when am I ever going to be happy? Is happiness anywhere to be found? Am I always just going to either feel safe and bored or excited and heartbroken?
Goodness.
That's what I meant when I wrote the chapter Never Satisfied.
Right.
And the way that I start this, like answering that conundrum, is by saying to people, let's start with why we keep going for people who hurt us. You know, why do we keep going for these situations that leave us worse off at the end of them? And I go through, I think it's 5 different reasons why that is. And one of them being that we go for a pain that's familiar to us. You know, what kind of pain are we used to? If we're used to hot and cold love,
right?
If we were used to that growing up, we come to learn that's what love feels like. Love feels like mega anxiety and abandonment, followed by the euphoria of suddenly someone shows up for you for a day.
Right.
And that feels amazing. And you think, oh, this is it. This is like when you feel it. And especially, you know, our nervous system got trained at an early time in our life to respond to certain things. If your nervous system is trained to respond to that hot and cold energy, then now all of a sudden you're 25, someone doesn't text you for 5 days, and it feels important because you feel anxious and you feel like, oh my God, I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't do anything. I'm just thinking about this person. And that anxiety, you start to think of it as something else. You're like, oh, maybe that's chemistry. Maybe that's passion. Maybe that's like important. Maybe this is a sign of how much this person means to me already.
Right.
And then that person texts you on day 6, you get that text and it's like a drug.
Right.
Oh my God, they were thinking of me. And so you're in this pattern of, wow, this is the thing. If I could just get this person, I'd feel good. Meanwhile, there's someone else who's actually turning around to meet you. There's someone who's actually on a date with you, who's spending less time trying to impress you because they're actually interested in you. So they're actually asking you questions.
Right.
And checking in with you and seeing what you're all about and what your dreams are and who you are as a person and showing interest. And after the date, they're saying, I had a really good time. Do you want to do something tomorrow night? And being simple.
Yes.
And consistent. And you go, boring. What is this?
Right.
This isn't it. Let me go back to this situationship with this person who I've been microdosing on for the last 2 years of my life, thinking that one day if I could finally get them, I'd be blissfully, euphorically happy.
It doesn't happen. What do you think about double texting? You know, when someone, like, I have a friend who does this all the time, and she's just like,
she double texts or she
double texts.
Right.
And she'll follow up. And I'm like, gotta relax a little bit. But, you know, I don't know if I'm just, you know, being too casual.
I sit somewhere in the middle on this.
Okay.
If you have a pattern of double texting, I would say that's not respecting yourself. Right? If you're consistently double texting someone, then what that's saying is, you know, I feel like I have to fight twice as hard I have to do twice as much work as you for every text. And that sends a message to someone. But if you have a rule that says I'll never ever double text, then there's almost an unhealthy pride that I think can hold a person back. Right? Because it can be vulnerable to reach out to someone again and say, hey, like, how's your day or whatever, after you didn't get a text back a couple of days ago.
Right.
But I'm not going to be doing that again. Like, it's not like I'm going to be doing that a third time. And I'm not going to create this pattern in this situation. So I really think the truth is somewhere in the middle. I imagine that there's a spectrum, and on one side of the spectrum, there's ultimate pride. And on the other side of the spectrum, there's ultimate proactivity.
Yes.
You don't really want to live on either side of that spectrum. Because if you're so proud that you know, when I was single, I remember this so well. I remember going on dates and at times getting off the date and thinking, well, that went horribly. Like, she's not into me at all.
Right.
Like, there was There was nothing there.
Right.
There was no moment where she flirted with me, complimented me, she didn't like lay a hand on me at any point. Like she's not interested. And then 2 days later, I'd get a text saying, I had such a great time. Let's see each other again. And I'd be like, what? Huh. What date was I on? Like, am I so bad at reading people that I didn't? And I look back now and I go, there was a level of like, kind of, I'm not going to do anything to show interest that I had got off the date. And I thought there's no point me texting this person again because they're just not interested. And yet they wanted to see me again, which was bewildering. So, too much pride and we never actually communicate anything to a person. But, we keep ourselves safe because no one can reject you and you're so proud all the time. But the other side of it is ultimate proactivity where you initiate and then initiate and then initiate and then initiate. And you get stuck in that loop where you're always the one who is reaching out more. I call it being in the blue when you look at your text messages and you like, there's a sea of blue there.
Don't be in the blue.
Don't be in the blue.
Don't be in the blue, please.
And there's like a little bit of gray every 3 messages. Like we're not paying attention to the fact that the dynamic is not reciprocal, that there's not equal investment. And you don't want to be in a dynamic where there's not equal investment.
Oh, it sucks. 100%. In your book, Love Life, I think the intro is interesting because of the name. Karma is a bitch. So did karma get you?
Yeah, karma definitely got me.
It did.
Yeah,
How did it get you? Ooh, tell, please.
Well, I started this book. I wrote a book 10 years ago.
Right.
And every year since, my publisher HarperCollins has wanted me to write another book. And every year I was like, I'm not ready. I really want to make sure that the next time I write a book, it feels like I have to get this message out there.
Well, that was, 10 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. Almost.
10 years
the guy.
Ago. Yeah, it was over 10 years ago now.
Of course. Wow.
Crazy, I know.
Okay, so that comes out. Obviously, it's a New York Times bestselling, book. And I get why the publishers want another book. They're like, come on, Matthew, do another one. Yeah. But you had to obviously go through life and go through different things. And so here we are with your new book, and karma is a bitch.
Karma is a bitch.
Karma is a bitch.
I wrote, I wanted to start this book firstly by, I had read for 17 years of my life, these comments on my YouTube videos saying he would be a great person to date. Is someone with his like emotional intelligence. Yeah. Oh my God, he'd be the perfect guy to date. I wanted to like take myself off of any kind of pedestal that anyone had ever put me on and say to people, if you thought I'd be a great guy to date, you were wrong. For most of my life, I have been a terrible person to date. And it was important for me to say that because I didn't want to start from some place of being held up as some sort of paragon of what everyone should do.
Right.
I dated in unhealthy ways. I think, I was either in monogamous relationships, jumping kind of like a series of like, 2-year relationships that I would jump out of one and into another and incapable of being on my own. Mm-hmm. Or I was single and I was dating in this dopamine-agenic, addictive way where it was like my nervous system was jacked up all the time and I was kind of unable to sit still.
Right.
And just, I say in the book, like on weekends where I needed to just like sit down and just be with my own shit and be in my thoughts and learn how to just be by myself. I just call a person, and that constant running away from my own emotions, from my own thoughts, from my own fears of just being in a room by myself with myself. I avoided it at all costs. I mean, so much so I didn't write about this in the book, but I remember one year thinking I really need to take some time and figure out like, this isn't working for me. I remember having the specific thought at a certain point as a single person going, the way I'm doing this isn't working for me. It's certainly not working for anyone else. I'm not making anyone happy.
Right.
But I'm not making me happy either. I am like anxious. I feel untethered. I feel it doesn't feel like me. It doesn't fit my values. I just don't feel good. I remember booking a trip to Mexico for like 4 or 5 days on my own. And I was like, I'm just going to go and be on my own.
This is good. Okay, wait.
Yeah, well,
maybe
no. It was, I remember getting to like the day before and thinking, I can't do this. This is too much. Like, what am I going to go and do? Just, like, get on a plane and then get in a car from the airport to the hotel, and then I'm going to check into a hotel, and then I'm going to
just sit there and
sit by a pool and go, okay, I'm on vacation now. Like, this is going to make me crazy. And I remember having this moment where I almost canceled, and then I went, no, I'm not. Like, someone in my life said to me, you're not canceling, you're going. I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And then I got there. It sounds so pathetic when I say it out loud, but it's just the truth. You know, how difficult it was for me. Because I know for some people, they're like, I'll go on vacation on my own happily. Like, give me those tickets.
Right.
But for me, it was just not comfortable for me. And I remember getting to this hotel. It was like nighttime when I got there, and all the stars were out. And it was this gorgeous place on the ocean. I could hear the waves, and the lobby was beautiful. And it was all sort of outdoors. And
oh man,
I remember standing there, and it looked beautiful. And I had this instinct to turn to the person to my right and say, isn't this amazing? And there was no one there.
Oh, Matthew.
And I thought, and I had this, my heart sank.
Yeah.
And I felt so alone and so lonely. And I realized how much of my life was spent enjoying things through the kind of mirror of other people's reactions.
Yep.
That it was a weird thing, because it was like, it wasn't worth doing just for me. Like, it wasn't worth me going to a nice hotel on my own and sitting there. Like, who cares? It was kind of like, well, why would I waste this on just me?
Right.
Like, it's not, it was like it was this weird thing of, I would do it for someone else, but I wouldn't do it for me.
That part.
And it would only be awesome if I could feel someone else saying it was awesome and helping me to feel how awesome it was by them appreciating it.
Gosh, isn't that interesting?
And yeah, it was fascinating. And I instantly, when I felt that pang of I'm on my own and there's no one for me to kind of project how great this is off of,
right.
I thought, I want to go home. I literally thought I started going, I looked up, what's the cancellation policy on this hotel? Like, how can I get my money back, and can I go home tomorrow and just stay one night? I really felt that way. And then I went, you know what, just one more day. Mm-hmm. Again, it sounds ridiculous. Like, I'm having to coach myself through staying in this amazing place, but I was deeply uncomfortable, and it was painful. And then I say, I'm just going to stay one more day. If you're still having a terrible time, we'll go home in 2 days. So I stayed, and I woke up and I had breakfast, and I was sat on my own having breakfast. Now, by the way, I want to paint a picture for people. I'm not someone who hasn't spent a lot of time on my own. In my life, I've spent an extraordinary amount of time on my own, because as a person who's run a company for many years, most of my days are on my own, working from a laptop at home. Most of my travels have been alone, because when people are asking you to come on the Today Show, they're barely putting you in an economy seat on a plane. They're not saying, and who else do you want to bring as a plus one? You're like, I'm constantly traveling on my own for work.
That's right.
But now it was just about giving Matthew a nice experience, and I couldn't do it. And I stayed, every day I stayed, it got a little bit easier. And then by the third day, I was having breakfast, and I started to like enjoy myself. I was like, oh, this is okay. And I remember leaving that trip and feeling like, oh my God, I like my own company. And it was like a pivotal moment for me, where I felt like I'd built a little bit of a bond with myself over those days. And those are the things that gradually get us to a point where we can actually start making better decisions in our love lives.
Right.
Because now we're not choosing from a place of panic.
Right.
We're choosing from a place of being happy enough on our own that we can hold until the right thing comes.
Which is the title, Love Life. And that is so important. And when you were writing, how long have you been working on this book?
4.5 years.
Okay, so during this time, were you in a relationship with your wife at that time?
That's the funny thing. I didn't write this as like a, I didn't write as
like as an evolved,
as an obnoxious married person,
right,
telling everyone how to do it. I wrote this book from a place I was heartbroken. I wrote it single, having overcome that heartbreak, and then wondering, am I going to meet my person? Like,
wow.
I wrote it when I was writing this when I first met my wife, and I was being the difficult one, and she was trying to navigate me and doing it very successfully. And I finished the final edit of this book on our honeymoon. So it's like this book is a very close to my heart, this book, because many of the chapters that people will read in this book, I didn't write from a place of everything's going well for me. Some of the chapters I wrote from a place of really darkness and pain. And what I'm writing to you in this book are the things that I was using myself to get through those difficult moments. The reason the subtitle of this book is How to Raise Your Standards, Find Your Person, and Live Happily No Matter What was because I was doing that for myself at the same time as I was writing about it for other people. So yeah, it's a very I feel very close to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your wife, does she have a favorite chapter?
She loves Happy Enough.
Oh.
There's a chapter called Happy Enough at the end of the book, and I love Happy Enough as a phrase. Happy is intimidating. When everyone says you have to be happy alone before you can meet someone, I always find that, I always cringe a little when people say that, because I'm like, no, you don't. That's nonsense, and we all know it. Like, how many of your married friends who say you have to be perfectly happy and whole before you meet someone? I'm like, I knew you when you met your partner. You weren't happy and whole. Don't give me that. Right? Like, we're really good at saying these things from a place of comfort and security in a relationship. It's a lot harder when you're single. You're in the trenches. Yeah. And the idea of like, I just need to be perfectly happy, you'd be waiting your whole life.
Absolutely.
But happy enough is achievable.
I love that.
If you could just get to happy enough to hold, happy enough to say no to the wrong person, happy enough that when the right person comes along, you don't become a different person trying to attract them because you feel like if you lost them, it would be the end of everything. Ooh. Happy enough that if nothing changed from here, you go, I'd be all right. Yeah. Maybe I'd be happier if I met the love of my life. You can even concede that. But if nothing changed, I'm all right.
Happy enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so must get your new book, Love Life. Now, what if someone wants to do coaching with you or be a part or go and, see you speaking or be a part of your retreats? Where can they go?
I'll give you one answer that helps people with all of those things, because this book is available at lovelifebook.com. Mm-hmm. If you order a copy of the book there before May the 4th, the book comes out on the 23rd of April, but if it's before May the 4th, you also get a ticket to an event I'm doing on May the 4th, which is virtual. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can join. But I'm going to be doing a multi-hour event called Find Your Person. And we're going to take the lessons from the book and bring them to life in a way that is going to give you the best possible chance at finding your person this year, and also building your happiness and your confidence along the way. So if you want coaching from me, this is a very unique moment in time, because we aren't doing that many events right now. And my retreat is a 6-day event in Florida that I do once a year, and that's an investment. But this is a free event that you get just for getting a copy of the book, and you can be coached by me in this event. So if you go to lovelifebook.com, you can get a copy of the book. You'll see the links for different retailers. And once you've got it, just come back to that page and use your confirmation number on your receipt to get your ticket to the event.
Amazing. And one more time, what's the website?
lovelifebook.com.
Done.